All right, good morning. It's Bernard Nomberg with another weekly episode of NOMBERG LAW Live. Hope everybody's doing well. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to my buddy up in Ohio, Anneke Godlewski. Hey, Hannah, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well and had a good holiday season, and I really appreciate you sharing some time with us today. Well, today we are going to talk with Anneke about several things. But before we get into each of those, there's several topics for us to chat about today. I first came in contact with Anneke a couple of years ago through a group that we belong to, Max Law, Maximum Lawyers. It's a Facebook-based group that has, I guess, close to now 2,000 members in it from around the country, around the world. And I also have heard Anneke speak several times. She's spoken to one of my marketing groups, and it's just so giving with her time, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today. But before I butcher it any further, Anneke, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living.
So I have been in legal marketing for 13 years now. It started off, I worked as a receptionist in a small personal injury law firm, kind of on a whim. A friend of mine had worked there as a paralegal, and their receptionist quit the week before my college spring break. And so she said, hey, will you come fill in? And I said, sure. And it kind of morphed into a marketing position after the guy I was working for, it's like 2006-ish, and websites for attorneys were just becoming popular. We were part of Ben Glass and Great Legal Marketing's mastermind program, and there were just so many different marketing tactics that were kind of coming out into the world where I feel like attorneys were a bit behind the curve when it comes to marketing. And so all of this sort of catapulted a career of just teaching lawyers how to be real in their marketing, because we're so bombarded with so many billboards and television ads and things like that, that we had to try to figure out a way to differentiate ourselves between some of those mega firms with the multi-million-dollar marketing budgets. And so I found a passion in trying to help attorneys kind of get out from under that negative stereotype that often follows you. And I've met some really great people along the way that I've learned so much from. So I don't know, I've kind of always stuck in the legal field, but marketing's it's my passion.
Well, and it clearly shows of the times that I've been live where you have spoken at conferences or with my group, or just seeing what you do on social. It just pours out of you, and it clearly has resonated with many, many people. And I know you have an organization or a company that you have called Market Inc. So talk to us a little bit about what you do there.
So over the course of membership in all of these different groups, and I do have to thank my old boss, Chuck Boyk. He was very kind and always including me in all of the different conferences and everything that he would go on. So I had the opportunity to meet a lot of influential people who would always ask a lot of questions about the out-of-box marketing tactics that I was trying to use at the firm. And since it revolves so much around building relationships with other people and giving back to the community, it piqued the interest of quite a few people, mostly because it was something that wasn't being done very often in a lot of firms. So it gave me the opportunity and the platform to speak quite a bit about all these different things. And my mentality, ever since I was a kid, was that if you give without expecting anything in return, then you're not going to be disappointed if you don't get anything in return, but also that it kind of helps spread the joy. So when I would get a lot of questions about some of the programs that we were doing, I would, here's how you do it, take it and run, pretty much this open source, free giving of all this information. Well, October of 2018, when I was kind of on the fence about growing my own little business. I had it forever. I was mostly a freelance writer. Growing it into something bigger, I sat down with myself and I'm like, man, I've had so many questions from so many different attorneys over the years for guidance and how to do these programs, that maybe I could try my hand at reaching back out to some of these people and seeing if they would also like my help. So I did, and that's kind of where marketing took off. And my main goal, it's hard because I still struggle with what I want to be when I grow up, right? And what exactly I want to do. So it's kind of morphed into teaching other people how to market their own firms, teaching their marketing directors, sharing ideas, helping them with their branding, helping them figure out what their stories are. And I've just now taken all of my blueprints from over the years and put them into different courses, which I'll be, talking about that later on. But that's kind of what it's morphed into. It's a marketing consulting company, but it has more of a heart, I feel.
Lawyers in general can be a very skeptical group. And when you're trying to tell a new client or prospective new client who's a lawyer, a law firm, a marketing director within a firm, whoever you're dealing with, we want you to give, and not expect anything in return. They're going to say, or at least think, I'm paying for this and I'm not going to get anything in return. Why should I do this? And how do you flip that switch in their mind, in their thinking, in their process? And I know that's kind of the secret sauce here, but it just seems so unnatural, or not the typical, not the norm for law firms, for lawyers who are marketing out there, to have that mindset. And it's so refreshing. And I want to talk about that just a little bit, but I want to say hello to a couple of our buddies who are watching. Christopher Nicholson and Chelsea Williams are over there. Hey, guys, Happy New Year.
Hey, guys, how are you?
Throw in your questions, your comments, anything good you got to say. My dad's watching down in South Alabama. Hey, Dad. But talk about that mindset that you're having to switch most of the people into thinking that way.
Yeah. So the idea of figuring out at the end of the day, we all need to make money, right? But this idea of giving without expecting anything in return, and then finding in the firm what that switch is, makes for a very, very difficult elevator pitch. Because when people ask me what I do and I try to explain that, it's marketing based on giving, I can't figure out how to say it in 15 or 30 seconds or less, because I feel like it's more than just a marketing consulting company. It's really teaching firms how to change their mindsets. So I think, in a nutshell, I guess, where that switch comes in is it can only happen after you figure out who your target market is, right? And then also what problems they are dealing with. So not necessarily the problem that they're coming to you with, but the problems and the things that they care about and the struggles that they face when they're outside of your office. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard me say this before, but my little motto is that, unfortunately, for attorneys, you guys are at a disadvantage right off the bat, because nobody wants to hire you. You are the one service industry where everybody dreads coming to you. It doesn't have anything to do with you, but it has everything to do with the fact that they don't want the problem that they have in the first place that means that they need you. If I go to the hair salon, I want to go to the hair salon because I want my hair to look better. If I go to a bowling alley, I want to go to a bowling alley because I want to go bowling. So attorneys are that disadvantage as a business owner is you have to prove to them ahead of time that you're the best option for them, because when they're dealing with that problem that's driving them to come to you, they are so stressed out. They cannot sleep. They don't know what to do. They don't know how they're going to afford you. They don't know if it's even going to work. So they have all these other things going on in their head, and they're also being bombarded with marketing messages from every different angle that seem very ingenuine. So what I try to teach some of these attorneys is, if you give without expecting anything in return early, before they need you, before they have a problem, then when it does come time for them to need a lawyer, they're going to think of you first, because you were that genuine person who gave a crap before money was on the table. So, I mean, that's kind of like in a small nutshell how the shift is. Sure. But it can also be difficult because attorneys are like, well, how do I know this is going to work? Or how do I quantify it? How do I put, what's the ROI on doing these things? And that's a really tough question to answer. Why I encourage a lot of firms to keep different forms of tracking, which I'll talk about in some of the courses that I've created. But the main thing to take away from this whole idea is, one, that it's really inexpensive. I mean, you're really doing nothing more than just figuring out ways to be the genuine person that you are and build relationships that you should be building anyway in your life to better yourself and your family as, a good person. So it's kind of, I always say it's kind of like you take every lesson that you're trying to teach your 5-year-old child and apply it to your business. Just be a good person, communicate, say hello, shake hands, look in your people's eyes, and I don't know, it'll work.
I've often heard from many people over the years, I hate all lawyers except for my lawyer. I don't need a lawyer, but I got my guy, and my guy's the best lawyer. Well, how do you become that in the mindset of a typical client? Well, right. I think you take the approach, give, and eventually it's going to come back to you if you are genuine. I want to welcome Elizabeth, Tamara, and Simi. Chelsea has a comment here. Anneke, she said she's seen some divorce attorneys do a wonderful job at this with all their marketing messages, and they help people who are considering divorce or maybe want to avoid it altogether. And I think it's just so smart that I get so tired, I'm sure we all do, when you're in a wreck, I got my check, or, all of that type of in your face. Typically it's on billboards or TV, but not all, and I'm just being in general, of course, not everybody's that way, but it's so refreshing when I go on any type of social media and I see attorneys who've just figured out what you're explaining, and they don't even really talk about who they are or their firm. They show you that they're just like me and you. They right. have ups and downs. They have problems just like me or you. They just may happen to have an extra degree of education and some specialty that, frankly, you may need one day, whether it's divorce, a car wreck case, who knows, bankruptcy, it could be anything. But it's so refreshing when you do get to see those lawyers, and I applaud the approach that you take with Market Inc. and that now that you've organized it to where you're getting it out in such a broad way, so for so many else to learn. And that's
and again, like one other advantage too is you feel like a great person, right? And it is very low cost, especially compared to some of the TV advertisements or radio advertisements or the old school marketing. Remember how the tens of thousands of dollars that used to be spent on Yellow Pages. But it also differentiates you from those people who have the bad advertising out there. I've done a little experiment, and I've started taking screenshots on my phone of all the ads that I get for different things. And we all know that your phone watches you and listens to you, and it's creepy, and it's very, very creepy. But I've started paying attention to all of the different ads that are they make you feel worse than you already are. So if you're dealing with certain problems, like for instance, I've been struggling with depression for a really long time, and it affects different parts of my life. I've gained weight. It affects my sex drive. I, feel tired and lost and sad. And so imagine how much worse I feel when I get an advertisement for low libido and it's a pink elephant. And the ad is to talk about the pink elephant that's in the room, your low libido. And I'm like, this doesn't make me feel better at all. I'm not gonna click on the ad and try to figure out how to solve that problem. I'm gonna talk to my therapist or a friend or someone like that. So be that therapist and be that friend and be that open channel for people to get a welcoming attitude from you in all these different types of marketing. And then they're going to come to you naturally with their problems and then realize, oh my gosh, you can actually solve it too. That's the added bonus, right? Because they know that you're not coming to them to try to say, oh, hire me for money. It's that you really care about what's going on in their lives.
Let's turn on the television midday in probably any decent sized market. And during that, I would say from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., how many ads from lawyers are you going to see just back to back to back to back to back? And
Right.
I'm sure people have done these surveys and studied this, but on those rare occasions where maybe I'm home or something and I'm watching some television, it's overwhelming, and they're all so similar in their approaches. And I'm not bashing those who are on
No, no,
TV
right.
or billboards, but it's so overdone, and it just is such a turnoff. And I'm sure it can be in any other markets. It doesn't have to be in the legal field. It can be for drugs or products or what have you. I want to reset for just a second and welcome those who are watching us. I've got my friend Anneke Godlewski up in Ohio, who I'm hopefully going to get to see. Well, it's going to be 5 months from now. I hate that. It's going to be in June. We're going to be together in St. Louis at the Maximum Lawyer Conference 2020. And I know that you're intimately involved with planning it and putting it together, and it's going to be so awesome. So, and I want to pause you for just a second before we talk about that. Elizabeth's got a couple of comments I want to hit. She says, when the ads make you feel worse, and you're right, there's just so many of them that you just see continually. And she also, here's where she struggles with estate planning ads, since they tend to be so fear-based. Oh, I've seen so many of those in my market with that approach. You're right, Elizabeth. It would be a welcome change if somebody could come up with a better approach to that. But it sounds like if somebody takes some of Anneke's courses or gets some time with her, they'll figure those things out. I think we may have just lost her temporarily. She'll come back in just a second. But when she does, or as she is, I want to talk about Maximum Lawyer Conference 2020. It's coming up in June 10, 11, and 12 in St. Louis. It's run by our buddies out of St. Louis, Jim Hacking and Tyson Mutrix. I've been to it the last couple of years. I'm going to be speaking at it as well, and she's back. Good to see you. I'm talking about Max Law 2020, giving them a little plug. I want you to talk to us a little bit about what you're doing and why attorneys and people who would be interested in this type of marketing, digital, social media, et cetera, why do these folks need to consider coming to this awesome conference in June?
So we're super excited about Max Law this year. Well, we are every year. I mean, this is the first year that I've been involved with helping plan, but it was kind of difficult because the Facebook group has grown to so many people, and I'm so proud of Jim and Tyson, but it's almost, it might have already hit 2,000. I'm not.
Right there.
Oh, sure.
I'm proud of Jim. I can never be proud of Tyson. So just wanted to make sure if they watch this, very proud of Jim. Love Jim. Tyson's okay, but continue.
But the Facebook group has gotten so large, and there's been such a rally of great ideas and help and advice. And I know that anyone watching, and probably people that are going to watch this after the fact, are part of the group. If not, join it. It's amazing, and it's free. I've had people say that, I mean, I've seen comments on Max Law that are like, I have gotten more out of this group than anything. And it's no different than Legal Minds and Mastermind Experience and, all of these different collaborative groups where you're just talking real talk about the struggles that you're facing. And that's what Max Law Con is. I mean, it was literally, and Jim and Tyson can correct me if I'm wrong, but my perspective is that the conference was just born out of all of the camaraderie that happens online, and people are just like, hey, we should get together. And now it's morphed into this 2-day, well, you have to be there Wednesday night too, because we have some awesome things planned, but this 2.5-day collaboration of, some of the best speakers across the country that are not going to sell you anything, which is worth its weight in gold. But B, it's all genuine, and the people there just want to see other people succeed. And that's really rare, especially in this industry that's so competitive. It's hard to find a group of people like that. So Max Law, you're going to go away with, information on everything from digital marketing to mindset and organization. Oh my gosh, how to hire the right kind of staff, how to manage your firm in a way that helps you grow, how to scale, how to save money on technology, how to weed out bad marketing bad marketing spends and good marketing spends. It's just, I think there's close to 40 speakers, and it's really cool because this year we're going to have breakout sessions. So there are going to be different tracks based on theme. So it really, and again, I'm not trying to sell anything, but it might be worth bringing an office manager or a marketing director or someone else who helps you tackle all of these management issues in your firm, because it's going to be valuable for so many more people than just the attorney. And the ticket prices are so low that, I mean, you go to most conferences, they're charging upwards of $1,000 a ticket. This is super cheap. So it's definitely worth it.
I put the link in the show notes to the Max Law Con sign up page for anybody who's interested, which will also take you to their website. But the way I describe it, the first year that I went in 2018, it was like drinking from a fire hose. It was too much. It was overwhelming. There was just so much great content. I was cramping up writing so much and just trying to absorb it. Last year in 2019, a little more relaxed, because over that course of that next year, from 18 to 19, I incorporated a lot of what I learned from the 18 conference into our practice. And then from 19, I learned so much because it grew. The conference really increased in numbers and speakers and interesting topics. And then this year when I'm going, I'm privileged to be asked to speak. And I'm so looking forward to meeting new friends, catching up in person with now old friends, which I love. And you're right, you're not getting sold products. It's not in your face. There are vendors, but it's not in your face. It's not that type of event. It's people from around the country wanting to share the knowledge they have gained with others in our industry. And that is such a refreshing approach. And it also just fits right in with your approach. And I've also put the link to your website in the show notes. And I want to kind of pivot for just a minute, because we could talk about Max Law and Max Law Con the rest of this time, but we got so many other great things to chat about. I want to talk about the approach, and we've hit on this a little bit, Anneke, and I want to say hey to Cece and my mom and others who are watching us. My buddy Jack Rosenthal, who's up in school in Montana. Hey, Jack, good to see you, bud. Thanks for taking a minute or two. About attorneys in crowded fields and crowded markets, how do they become more relatable? What do they do? For example, I'm in the work comp and Social Security. That's what our firm focuses on. There are tons of Social Security disability lawyers, really, in most cities, most large cities. There are not as many work comp in my market, but it's still very crowded. But it's not a cutthroat world. That's just not who we've cultivated. But how do I stand out? How does my firm stand out? And it's hopefully by becoming more relatable. So I want you to kind of expand on that a little.
Well, and I think a lot of attorneys have this fear that they can't really talk about their own personal lives, or they don't want, and it's not a bad thing to have this thought that you shouldn't talk too much about yourself, right? Because we all don't want to sound too vain or anything. But on the other hand, looking at your life, and I mean, if you were to take your day, I wake up, I go to, this local gym, I make these 5 phone calls on the way into work, I stop and grab a coffee from this coffee shop in the, across the street from my building. I walk in, I say hello to the 15 people who work for me, I go about my work, I handle these cases, I go to lunch here with this person, I go back to work. On the way home, I stop at a flower shop to grab flowers for my, wife and daughter. I grab takeout from that great local Mediterranean place around the block from the house. I go home, I read X, Y, and Z on my phone or on the computer after dinner, and then I go to bed. All of those different interactions that you have throughout your day can really give you an indication of who you should be building relationships with, right? So the gym owner at the local gym, Chris Nicolason, did a great job of this in his newsletter. He put the owners of Bonnie and Clyde gym that's right there in his local community. Great piece of information for the general public. Makes Chris look like a genuine guy who cares about the businesses around town. And of course, the owners of Bonnie and Clyde are going to love the fact that they got the free advertising for nothing, and it was a win-win all around. So the gym owner, the coffee shop owner, the employees that work for you, the flower shop owner, the Mediterranean, the person who owns the Mediterranean place. What are you reading after hours? Are the authors somehow related to your field, or maybe complement your field in some sort of way? The 5 people that you talk to on the way to the office, who are they? Are you talking to your mom? Are you talking to your neighbor? Are you, when you go to pick up your mail, when you get home from work and you say hello to the neighbor, what type of relationships are you building with all of those people to not for the sake of trying to build your business, but just expand your reach? And when it comes up in conversation, know exactly how to explain what you do, which I struggle with all the time because it's hard, right? But if you can figure out what your elevator pitch is, and pot calling the kettle black, I need to take my own advice, but figuring out what your message is in not such a way that's like, oh, I get multi-million-dollar settlements for people who have been hit by a Coca-Cola truck. No, nobody wants, you're going to come off as weird. I help people who need to get their lives back after an accident. That's what you do, and that's what you're passionate about. Figure out the way to say it, but then, instead of asking about, instead of telling people all about yourself, ask, hey, how's your daughter? How did he win did your son win the basketball game? Think of all the different things that all these other people are thinking about day to day. Oh, Mediterranean guy had a new menu item. Hey, what made you come up with that? Where'd you get that recipe? And it could spark a conversation about his grandma who came over from Lebanon, who kept the recipe in her pocket. And what a beautiful story. Put something like that in your newsletter. Write a blog about it. Put it in your podcast. Like, oh my gosh, the guy in the corner of this great new restaurant, he just told me this beautiful story about his grandma's recipe, and how awesome is that? That's it. That's the end of the piece of content. And how many, the Mediterranean guy is going to spread that story around to everyone that he knows. You're going to look like a hero because you took the time to talk about him. And really, all you're trying to do is get to know the people around you. If the guy who owns a Mediterranean restaurant is hit by a Coca-Cola truck, and he remembers that you're an attorney because you mentioned it in passing, who do you think he's going to call? The guy on the TV commercial, or is he going to call you? He's probably going to call you, or he's going to, stop in and just make it easy for people to remember you.
It helps you stay top of mind, but
right.
even along those lines, it shows you're genuine. You're part of the community. You care about the community. And all of the collateral benefits that roll off of that is what you're explaining. It's
right.
The endorsement of third parties without you even asking for it. And that's
right.
What's so difficult to cultivate if you're not a genuine person. And that's part of that mindset. And
right.
Gosh, Anneke, I could talk with you for hours about this stuff. This is such great stuff. And at 30 minutes, I've already flown by. It's hard to believe. How can folks get in touch with you? I have put your website and the Facebook group that you have with Market Inc., but how can people get in touch with you directly?
So the best way I have on the contact page of my website, I have Facebook, my cell number, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. I'm really bad at Instagram. I'm really horrible at Instagram. I need some help with it. But one little piece that I'm going to add is that I don't think it's hard for people to jump on board with this mindset once they hear about all of the ways that it can help their businesses. What people struggle with is trying to figure out, okay, how do I take that mindset and merge it with my existing marketing, or create new marketing tactics based on that idea, because at the end of the day, the marketing work still needs to get done. And I think that's one thing that I've really struggled with ever since I built my business is I take so much time trying to convince people how they should change their mindset, and I don't focus enough on the tasks of what to do. And I mean, I've really struggled this year. It's been difficult trying to manage everything and try to hire different people, and they don't work out, and I'm dealing with all of the same problems that a lot of business owners are. So I appreciate everyone's patience, if it's been crazy. But so what I tried to do was take all of those steps and all of these pieces of information, all these how-tos, all these blueprints, all of these, okay, here's the calendar, here's the next step, here's what you do, and put it into courses. So people can, I can only reach so many people, right? I mean, I can only have so many phone calls, I can only go on so many podcasts to preach the how-tos. So I put together a course of, all right, here's digital marketing, here's social media, here's newsletter marketing, here's community marketing outreach programs, XYZ. So I have all of this in this comprehensive course, and I'm going to be launching it probably by the end of the week, I think. So if you have any, if you're interested, or if you want some more information, I don't know if there's a place for people to leave their email addresses in the Facebook group or somewhere, but I'll have a special offer for anybody who is tuning in today. That way you can have like an added benefit and get a first exclusive look on this set of courses that I've put a lot of hard work into. So keep an eye out for that, but keep checking back to the website. I'll have a tab, but if you want to leave your email address, I'll email you some special secret information that only you guys can have access to.
That's why I asked Anneke at the beginning of the year to come on and to talk. She's such a giver, and that's a prime example, and that's so sweet of you. That's so awesome of you, but I would expect nothing different. And I'm so glad that we've had this time together and to chat.
Likewise.
A little bit. And I really looking forward to seeing you in June, interacting with you online in the upcoming months. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Adam Wheel over in Tuscaloosa. Mitch Jackson, who we know very well, just joined us from Southern California. Good morning, Mitch. And guys, the time just flies by, especially when you're having good conversation with good company. And Elizabeth says sign her up, and she just put her email address in the comment section. Thank you, Elizabeth. Guys, again, this will conclude us with another weekly episode of NOMBERG Law Live. Anneke, thank you again. And
thank you. I really appreciate it. This was great.
That's good stuff. And guys, as always, we try to come to you 10 o'clock on Tuesdays, 10 o'clock Central on Tuesdays, 8 a.m. Pacific time, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Take care.